For nearly 2 decades, Dolph Ziggler was one of WWE's most talented performers. But in 2023, one of the most shocking releases in WWE history sent him packing. Was it bad booking, backstage heat, or something deeper? And why did he choose TNA over AEW? Well, it's more complicated than it seems. Dolph Ziggler's journey in WWE started in 2004, but not in a way most fans would expect. His first major role came as a member of the Spirit Squad, a group of male cheerleaders. It was a silly gimmick, but it got him on TV. After the faction disbanded, Ziggler rebranded himself, introducing the world to Dolph Ziggler in 2008, a cocky, athletic show-off who backed up his arrogance with incredible in-ring work. From the start, his potential was obvious. Ziggler quickly became one of the company's most consistent performers, delivering show-stealing matches every time he stepped in the ring. WWE took notice, giving him his first taste of championship gold in 2010 when he won the Intercontinental Championship, but it wasn't until 2012 that fans truly believed he was about to break through as a main event star. That year, Ziggler won the Money in the Bank briefcase, guaranteeing him a world title shot, and when he finally cashed in on April 8, 2013, the reaction was thunderous. Fans erupted as Ziggler pinned Alberto Del Rio to become world heavyweight champion. One of the most unforgettable moments in Raw history. It felt like the moment WWE finally saw him as a top guy. Then it all fell apart. Just weeks into his reign, Ziggler suffered a concussion. Instead of waiting for him to recover and rebuilding him, WWE took the title off him immediately. From that point on, his pushes became inconsistent at best, non-existent at worst. Even when he had momentum, WWE would pull the rug out from under him. Survivor Series 2014, he was the last man standing, single-handedly winning the biggest match of his career. He eliminated the final 3 members of the Authority, with the crowd fully behind him. It should have been his breakout moment, but instead, WWE moved on without him. Within weeks, the Authority was back in power, and Ziggler was shoved back into the mid-card. Feuds with The Miz, Baron Corbin, and Kofi Kingston, all mid-card filler. Year after year, Ziggler proved he was one of WWE's best, but the company never truly invested in him. But was it just bad luck, or did WWE never actually believe in Ziggler from the start? For years, fans wondered the same thing. Why didn't WWE ever fully push Dolph Ziggler? He had the talent, the look, and the crowd reactions. Yet every time he got close to breaking through, something held him back. One of the biggest reasons? Vince McMahon never saw him as the guy. Ziggler himself admitted that for nearly a decade, he thought Vince McMahon hated him. In an interview, he said there were 8 to 9 years where he couldn't understand why WWE wouldn't invest in him, despite his hard work. Later, he realized that Vince was simply challenging him, seeing how much he could handle.
No, those years, I'd say of the 15, 8 or 9 of them felt like, man, Vince hates my effing guts. What the hell is happening here? And then there's those 5 or 6 where you go, I get it now. This is, he's pushing me, he's challenging me because only I can do these things. And
But instead of elevating him, WWE seemed content with keeping Ziggler as a high-level mid-carder, never a true main eventer. Injuries also played a role. After his 2013 concussion, WWE immediately cooled off on him, and he never regained that momentum. WWE has a history of being cautious with injury-prone stars, and after that incident, they never put the full weight of the company behind him again. Another factor, Ziggler wasn't afraid to speak his mind. While many WWE superstars played the political game backstage, Ziggler was often vocal about his frustrations. He openly criticized WWE's booking, calling it lazy at times and expressing his desire for better creative direction. While that honesty earned him respect from fans, it may not have helped him behind the scenes. But perhaps the biggest reason? WWE was already focused on newer stars. During the 2010s, WWE was building around names like Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and later Drew McIntyre. Ziggler, despite his talent, was never part of their long-term vision, and ironically, being too good at selling might have also hurt him. He made his opponents look like megastars, so much so that WWE saw him as the guy to put others over, not be the guy himself. And after years of being overlooked, Ziggler started to ask himself, was staying in WWE even worth it anymore? After nearly 2 decades in WWE, Dolph Ziggler had seen it all. Championship wins, career-defining moments, and frustrating setbacks. But by 2023, one thing was clear. He had no future in WWE's plans. Despite being one of the most reliable performers on the roster, WWE wasn't using him in any meaningful way. He'd gone from stealing the show to barely being on TV. And when he was used, it was in forgettable mid-card feuds or as was an enhancement talent for younger stars. For a guy who once held the World Heavyweight Championship, that was a tough pill to swallow. Ziggler had always been vocal about wanting more. He wanted better creative direction, stronger feuds, and actual character development. But WWE wasn't offering that. Instead, he was handed scripted promos, repetitive storylines, and no real momentum. It wasn't just about money. Ziggler was reportedly making over $1 million per year in WWE. But what good was the paycheck if he wasn't being challenged? He wasn't just looking for a payday. He wanted to wrestle, and he wanted to matter. Another issue, he never got a long-term world title run. For years, Ziggler worked harder than almost anyone, yet WWE never fully invested in him. Guys like Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Drew McIntyre became the faces of the company, while Ziggler was stuck in the same cycle, a reliable veteran but never the guy. Then, in September 2023, WWE made the decision for him. Following WWE's merger with UFC under TKO Group Holdings, the company cut several wrestlers from the roster, and Ziggler was one of the biggest names on the list. It wasn't a personal decision. WWE was making cost-cutting moves, and since they weren't using Ziggler much anyway, they decided to let him go. After 19 years, Dolph Ziggler's WWE career was officially over, but with AEW and TNA both interested in signing him, why did he choose TNA? And was it the right move? Unlike other names that had been sporadically used or completely forgotten, Ziggler was a proven star, a former world champion, and one of WWE's most reliable workers. Fans expected him to have a role in the company for as long as he wanted, especially now that WWE was under the leadership of Triple H. But just like that, his WWE career was over. The reaction from fans and wrestlers alike was immediate. Superstars like The Rock, John Cena, The Miz, and Bayley posted tributes on social media, showing their respect for Ziggler's contributions to WWE. Even Big E, one of Ziggler's former rivals and allies, reacted by calling him one of the most underrated superstars of all time. Many within the industry were shocked, not just because WWE let him go, but because of how long he had stayed, despite the company never fully pushing him. For years, Ziggler had been a loyal company guy, someone who could be counted on to deliver great matches, make younger talent look good, and never complain publicly. Yet, when the time came for WWE to make budget cuts, his name was on the list. After 19 years, Dolph Ziggler's WWE career was officially over, but the big question now was, what next? Both AEW and TNA were interested in signing him, and with his level of talent, he could have gone anywhere. But instead of taking the route that most ex-WWE stars were taking, he made a surprising choice. So why did Dolph Ziggler turn down AEW and choose TNA instead? The answer might not be what you expect. When Dolph Ziggler became a free agent, many assumed he would follow the same path as other ex-WWE stars and sign with AEW. It made sense. AEW had a stacked roster, plenty of dream matches, and the kind of creative freedom that WWE never gave him. But instead, Ziggler made a surprising decision. He chose TNA. Why? Well, for starters, AEW is overcrowded with ex-WWE talent. Look at their roster. Adam Copeland, Edge, Christian Cage, Samoa Joe, Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley, and countless others are already fighting for screen time. Even well-known names like Andrade, Miro, and Keith Lee struggle to stay relevant in AEW's stacked lineup. If Ziggler signed with AEW, he risked being just another guy, lost in the shuffle. Meanwhile, TNA is rebranding and growing, making it the perfect opportunity for someone like Ziggler. TNA has spent the last few years quietly rebuilding its reputation, signing big names and putting on some of the best wrestling shows outside of WWE, but they needed a true marquee star to take them to the next level, someone with mainstream credibility who could help elevate the brand. Enter Dolph Ziggler. By choosing TNA, Ziggler immediately became a top guy, rather than having to fight for a spot in AEW's overcrowded locker room. He has a bigger role, more focus, and the opportunity to help shape the company's future. Another key factor, creative control and scheduling. In WWE, Ziggler had little say in his promos or storylines. In TNA, he likely has far more freedom to dictate his character, feuds, and even his match style. Plus, with TNA's lighter schedule, he can still work outside projects while staying fresh in the ring. So, did Dolph Ziggler, or now known as Nick Nemeth's, gamble with TNA pay off? At first, it seemed like the perfect move. TNA was rebranding, and Nemeth was positioned as one of its biggest signings in years. His debut at Hard to Kill 2024 was a massive moment, immediately setting him up as a top player in the company. And for a while, it worked. Nemeth quickly climbed to the TNA World Championship, proving that outside of WWE, he could be the guy. His reign lasted 183 days, giving him the kind of world title run WWE never truly gave him, but TNA wasn't the only place he thrived. He expanded his career by winning titles in NJPW and AAA, something he never had the freedom to do under WWE's restrictions. But wrestling isn't just about winning titles, it's about staying relevant. And after his TNA World Championship reign ended at Genesis 2025, questions started to arise. His loss to Joe Hendry, especially with interference from JBL, took the spotlight off Nemeth and placed it on a new top star. Was this just another setback, or was TNA already moving on without him? That's where things get complicated. TNA is a growing company, but it's still not on the same level as WWE or AEW in terms of mainstream attention. Despite holding major championships, Nemeth hasn't quite reached the massive post-WWE breakout that stars like Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre, or Bryan Danielson achieved. Nick Nemeth proved he could thrive outside WWE, but did his success in TNA change the industry's perception of him? In some ways, yes. Winning the TNA World Championship and competing in NJPW and AAA showed that he wasn't just a former WWE guy looking for a paycheck. He was still an elite talent who could deliver at the highest level. His decision to join TNA instead of AEW also made a statement. Rather than getting lost in AEW's bloated roster, he became a centerpiece of TNA's revival, proving he could carry a company on his back. But has he fully escaped the shadow of WWE? That's where things get complicated. While TNA has gained momentum, it still isn't on the same level as WWE or AEW in mainstream attention. Nemeth's name still carries weight, but has he elevated TNA, or has TNA limited his visibility? Then there's the question of whether WWE sees his value now more than ever. Many former WWE stars have left, reinvented themselves, and returned as bigger deals, Cody Rhodes being the most obvious example. If WWE views Nemeth's TNA run as proof that they underutilized him, they could offer him a major return deal. And with WWE's new working relationship with TNA, a comeback seems inevitable. The NXT TNA partnership has already allowed talent crossovers, making a WWE return easier than ever for Nemeth if both sides are interested. Whether it starts as an NXT appearance or a full-fledged WWE comeback, the door is clearly open. But would he want to return? For the first time in years, Nemeth has full creative freedom, a lighter schedule, and the ability to wrestle in different promotions. A WWE comeback could mean more money, but it could also mean returning to the same cycle he fought so hard to escape. And let's not forget, his release was one of the most shocking and controversial WWE decisions in recent years. But if you think that was wild, WWE has seen far bigger scandals over the years. From backstage chaos to moments that nearly got the company shut down, controversy and WWE go hand in hand. And trust me, some of these stories are absolutely insane. Click here to watch the most controversial WWE moments. You're not gonna believe what went down.